Some people think that just because I went through the medical situation I did, I had this aha moment and I figured everything out. And while that definitely was 90% of it, the 25 years leading up to it was what really set me up for that opportunity to learn. I was a classically trained singer. When I started in the studio at 16, I had to do rock and pop and blues, and then they were training me rock belting. Then I learned Broadway belting because I was doing some theater kind of stuff, and I was noticing of all those things and the many techniques and methods that I learned after that. Each of them would give me something that I looked for, that I was trying to get. That's why I was trying whatever someone told me it would do it, but then it would take away something I was able to do from a different technique. So like I could sing all these high notes when I did classical, but then I did rock belting and I had power, but I didn't have really, really low notes and I had no high notes at all. And then I would do Broadway belting and it was like I had this round middle tone and all of these things, but I didn't have that edge and I still didn't have the high notes unless they flipped into this operatic kind of classical sound. Today's singers listen to all kinds of different music. Even within worship, we have different styles that we'll bring in. We've got gospel, we've got stuff that leans country, we've got stuff that leans, typical worshipy pop. And variety is a wonderful thing. Back when I was working as a professional singer, singers typically sang one kind of music, but I was a different kind of singer. I was a gigging singer. That means I had to do session stuff and I had to do live stuff in bands. I would just be on a list and bands would say, we need a vocalist for this event. And you'd come in and you'd play with 12 strangers and, this big gala, and then you'd get paid and you leave and you go do another gig with another band, which means you had to learn 40 songs in 2 days, pretty much every week. And you had to know how to pull off all of those songs, whatever genre they were, and make them believable. Now, I was flying by the seat of my pants. I had trained in all that stuff thinking if I just trained more, if I just knew more, then I would be able to pull all this stuff off. It didn't help me. I was literally getting by the skin of my teeth. When I was 16, I started as a session vocalist, and I also started working in radio. I sounded like a cheerleader on speed. I have the recording. It's awful. So by the time I was 19, 20, I would be running around doing sessions and I would be doing voiceovers for commercials and then using this big low voice. And I go right into a jingle session and I'm singing for soprano. And the confusing thing was that I was using the same part of my body. I was using the voice to do the speaking work. I was using my voice to do the singing work. And yet what I knew that was effective to be able to last as a voice talent for 4 hours in the studio when other talent can't get through an hour without losing their voice, and the things everybody else was telling me to do as a singer to be able to sing in the studio were completely different. At the time I had developed my own program for voice talent and I had started training other voice talent for vocal endurance. And what I realized was that the tools that I was designing for the speaking voices were way more effective at getting my singing voice ready when I went into vocal sessions. And honestly, who has time to stop and do a 2-hour workout when you got 20 minutes to the next studio? It's just not practical. So I did what people do and I went online and I started looking up the science of the voice and how the voice works because it just made sense to me that it is the same body part. If I'm doing two completely different things for two different things that the one body part does, one's working, one's not. What's wrong with the one that's not? Which is what I spent all the money learning to do. That's how I happened upon the speech level singing movement. Now, I didn't just say those 3 words. I happened upon a speech-based singing organization, and they were the only people I could find that had actually had some basis in their training based on the same reports I'd been studying for my vocal work. I was so excited, I thought, finally somebody can explain this to me. And so I began training in that method, and I went to a coach and I said, okay, but what about this? And why does it do that? And I'm asking all these questions based on what I'd found out about the speaking voice. And all that I was told was that, well, that's just, singers don't care about that. Singers don't want to know. I said, no, but I want to know. I want to understand. And then it turned into, well, you can't access that level of information unless you are a certified instructor, which is very spendy. I didn't want to teach, but I really wanted to know. I wanted to be a better singer. I wanted to be more effective, and I wanted to grow faster. So I did. I spent way more money getting certified, and as part of that, I was required to teach, which I did at a friend's studio, and it was fine. I did my time, spent tons and tons of money going to master level clinics and met some wonderful people. But there was just one more problem. After I'd spent years learning all of this stuff that singers don't have access to, that made me mad because as a working singer, that's all I ever wanted, is to have access to the information I needed to make the best of my voice. I don't want to have to spend the rest of my life becoming somebody I don't want to be just to have access to the information. The other problem was that the information was relayed in a way that you would have to have 4 vocal degrees to even keep up with the conversation, which I had no interest, no time, no desire in doing either. They call it vocal pedagogy, which just means big words for singing things. I actually asked my coach once, I said, I understand from the scientific research I've done on my own, I kind of get when you relate to it, but can you just tell me in simple white girl language, if I just walked up to you onto the street and I said, here's my problem, what's going on? How would you just explain that in like a sentence or two? Could you do that? And wonderful man who actually leads the whole worldwide organization now thought about it very thoughtfully and said, I can't. He had 3 master level vocal degrees, and that was the way he spoke, and that was his comfort level. And it depressed me as a singer because that was not going to help me. Well, I didn't have interest, time, or money to go get 3 vocal degrees just so I could understand the vocal pedagogy conversation. And it definitely wasn't going to get me any more work. So I decided probably the smartest thing for myself to do is to just take everything I had learned, take all the manuals, go back to all the research I had already started, and just try to make sense of it as best I could. Out of that, I had begun creating my own little black book, performing and singing stuff and warm-ups and things and testing them all because I sang all the time and I had a great opportunity to test them all. Other singers that I would sing with in different groups would be like, what are you doing? Your voice is you're doing this so much better. What are you doing? I ended up teaching some singers and actually helping some of them recover from vocal nodules and get ready for album releases and stuff. So I was already really into the science and trying to make sense of it in a simple way. I really figured I'd never figure it out. I'd do the best I could just so that I could have the tools I paid all of them to give me that nobody did. And then came the end of my life.